Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be answering some frequently asked questions in photography. So let's jump right into the video. So number one is, how do I choose the right camera for my needs? So for choosing the right camera, I'll say first you need to think about your budget. You need to think about how much are you willing to spend on the camera. You have to think about what you'll be needing the camera for. Like, what do you shoot the most for? So if you shoot weddings, it's going to be different from someone who shoots products. It might be different from someone who shoots fashion. So I think that would really guide you in knowing the type of camera that you want to buy. Do you shoot videos? Do you just shoot pictures, or are you the type that shoot both pictures and videos? So those are some of the things that you put into consideration in picking the right camera for your need. Second question is, how do I pose subjects for portrait photography? I would say for me personally, whenever I'm shooting portraits, one of the things that help me posing my clients is Pinterest. So I just go on Pinterest, whatever I'm shooting, I just search on Pinterest. Let's say for example I'm shooting a professional portrait and I'm shooting a woman, so I'll just go on Pinterest and search portrait photography poses for women in studio, and Pinterest is just going to give me a lot of pose ideas, and I'll just show it to my clients, and that would help guide my clients in posing them. A lot of people are really stiff. A lot of people really don't know what to do when they come to take pictures, so they expect you, the photographer, to like guide them and direct them and post them, because if you don't post them, the pictures won't look good, and if the pictures don't look good, they'll say it's your fault. So for me, I use Pinterest. I don't have like any posing book or anything. I just use Pinterest, and it makes my work really easy. So number three, how can I effectively use natural light in my photos? For me, when I started photography, I shot a lot of natural light portraits, and some of the tips that I would give you is, first, shoot at the right time of the day. You don't want to shoot when the sun is very harsh. You don't want to shoot around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is really going to be harsh at that period. So shoot at the right time of the day, from like 4, 5. That's a good time. Or you're shooting early in the morning, as early as 6:30, 7, 8 o'clock. By then the sun is not harsh. You're just going to get this flattery light, laying on your subject, and it looks really good. The second tip for shooting in natural light I'll share in this video is, you can use things like reflector to help bounce light directly to your subject. That would do for natural light photography. Number 4 is, what editing software do you recommend for beginner? Like I always say, if you're editing pictures, I always recommend Lightroom, because Photoshop is a little bit complicated, because Photoshop is like an all-in-one software. But I feel like from Lightroom, if you have like some basic Lightroom knowledge, that would guide you into using Photoshop, where you can do like the advanced editing, like retouching and stuff like that. Number 5, what are the essential camera settings for beginners? So it's very simple. If you're a beginner, I would advise you to learn and understand how to use your manual mode. For me, that was like the beginning of learning how to use my camera. When I first got my camera, I was shooting everything on auto, because I really do not know how to use manual settings. And you can't keep shooting on auto if you're a beginner, because manual settings is going to give you full control of your camera. So I was lucky to meet someone who taught me how to use the manual mode, and I went back home, watched some videos on YouTube, mastered it, and ever since then it's been amazing. And for context, manual mode is basically like your exposure triangle, which is like your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So those are like the 3 major settings you need to master as a beginner, and that's all you need to use your camera. If you can start from there, you're good to go. So number 6, how can I capture sharp and clear photos? This is not difficult. This is very easy. There are a lot of factors that you should put into consideration if you want to get tag sharp photos. One of the major factors I would say is your lens, because sometimes if you are not using a even if you are using a really great camera, if you are using a WAC lens or a kit lens or a lens that is not really sharp, you might not be able to get like really tag sharp photos. Second thing is your camera settings. I should have said your camera settings before your lens. I feel like your camera settings matters a lot. So sometimes, let's say you are shooting like a group of people and you are using low f numbers like f1.8, f2.0, you are definitely not going to get a sharp photo from that particular setting. So you might have to take up your f numbers. If you're shooting fashion, you're shooting beauty, want to use high f numbers like f4, f5, f6. You know, your camera settings matters, your lens matters as well. So if you're using a kit lens, if you're watching this video and you're using a kit lens, or you're using a lens that is not sharp, try and make that sacrifice and make that investment on getting a very sharp lens. The next thing that I think you should also put in consideration in getting a sharp photo is your focus settings. If you're shooting a portrait, make sure that the eyes are in focus, make sure that the face are in focus, because those things matter. Before you click that shutter button, always make sure that your subject is in focus and you're nailing the focus properly. Next question is, how do I avoid camera shake when shooting handheld? I shoot handheld a lot, even though I have access to a gimbal, but I still shoot handheld a lot. But you can't keep shooting handheld forever, because there are some things that you just have to use a gimbal or maybe a tripod. First tip I'll try to say is make sure that your image stabilization is on. So a lot of modern cameras these days have image stabilization on. The camera I'm shooting with has image stabilization on, so whenever I'm shooting handheld, I try as much as I can to turn it on, and that helps in stabilizing my footage. If your camera don't have image stabilization, you can also check your lens. Some lenses have image stabilization. Also, one last tip that I would really share, I know that a lot of people don't know this, but use a heavy lens. If you want to avoid camera shake when you're shooting handheld, try as much as you can to use a heavy lens. A heavy lens would help in balancing the weight on your camera, balancing the weight of the camera on your hand, and that might help in avoiding camera shake. Next question is, how do I approach street photography without making people comfortable? I'm not a street photographer, but one of the tips that would really help in getting people to be comfortable with you is to don't try to approach them first with the aim of taking pictures with them. Have a normal discussion with people, get to know them for who they are and what they are doing, and it will be easy for them to feel comfortable with you when you've had that discussion with them. Let them open up about themselves and what is going on, and just listening to them than just taking your camera and pop, you want to take a picture of them. Most people are going to say like, oh, why are you taking me pictures? Most people are going to drive you away. If you talk to them, listen to them, you can start with asking them how their day is going. You can start with being interested in whatever they are doing, whatever you see them doing. I feel like that would help in getting them comfortable with you. I feel like that would help. So the next question is, how do I remove unwanted objects or blemishes from my photos in post-production? On Photoshop, I basically use two tools in removing unwanted objects or blemishes. So for blemishes on human skin, I use the spot healing tool. That's what I use in removing pimples or spots from the face. For objects, I use the patch tool. Do you understand? That's what I use. I basically use the patch tool. So those are like the two tools I use in removing blemishes or unwanted objects from my pictures when I'm editing. So last question, how do I photograph in low light conditions without using a flash? If you are going to be photographing in low light conditions, there are some tips that will definitely help you. Number one is use a lens that can really open well, something from like f2.0, f2.5, f2.8, f1.8. That would really help you in low light condition. Secondly, the second tip is use a camera that has a high dynamic range. Cameras with high dynamic range are expensive. They're not really cheap to come by, so that might be that might be tricky. One last tip I'll share with you that would help you in photographing in low light condition is to bump up your ISO. And it's very tricky because you might have grains or some of this noise on your pictures, on your videos, but don't bump your ISO too much. Just know where to keep it, at a point where like it's not too much, so you don't have like too much grains on your pictures or on your videos. So yeah, those are some of the frequently asked questions. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts about some of the questions I answered down in the comments. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Moses Apeche. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in my next video.